My earliest memory of money, oh my God, it actually is such a nostalgic feeling for me. My nana used to have, the post office savings books back in the day. So my nana was so good and like always put money in it really like religiously for me and my brother, and I think my other cousins too. I'm presuming so. I'm not like exposing a family secret. But she always kept them in this, like, she had this kind of old mid-century, like, those like an old radio kind of piece of furniture with like, it had like a radio in it and a record player. Yeah, like a really old school thing. And I remember we'd always be like, please, can we see the book? And we'd just go in and just look at it because I loved all the stamps in it. So that was a big memory of mine because my nana would always tell me like, you'll get that one day. And I remember I would like count up how much money is in it and stuff. Like I would live for that. That and then probably like the classic, my communion, like getting handed all that cash,
Can you remember how much you got?
I feel I got about, it would have been pounds. So I think it might have been like just under £200.
Inflation, what's that now?
I know, I don't know. I just remember like most people giving like 20s and 10s. Yes. Do you know what I mean? But now I think it's standard. It's like 50s. So like I remember counting it all up and I bought a Walkman. Because my dad was like, you really have to think of like this purchase, what you're gonna buy, buy something good, and then like the rest went in my post office account. So I was allowed to buy my Walkman, and then I think for my confirmation I got a Discman. I think I like upgraded my gear then, and then I'm still a bit of a like, I love all my gear, my tech bits, so kind of lasted.
So are you a spender or a saver?
I think I'm more of a saver. Mm-hmm. I would be more conservative and a bit like, I wouldn't be very risky with my money.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like I'd be quite scared of making huge purchases.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like it kind of freaks me out.
Make them?
I make them.
So you constantly like checking the price?
Oh, I'm a real researcher. Yes. Like I'll be months in a hole on like Reddit and like I'm so bad. Like I've been trying to find a piece of furniture for my house now for literally a year and a half because I'm just like, I keep going back to this one thing that's like new and then I'm like, or do I want vintage? And then I'm trying to find the and then it always just ends up becoming like so expensive because I'm like, well, if I'm going to buy it now, it may as well be like something that's going to last me forever. And I kind of then end up in a bit of a loop over it, which kind of drives me a bit insane. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
It's almost like an anxiety, like.
But I also know that like I can scavenge harder.
Yes.
And I can dig deeper.
There always seems like in my mind there's always something better than what I'm finding for some reason. And then I always flip between like vintage or do I want it new, especially with like furniture, because I'm like, oh, new furniture isn't really made to last. But then like I have quite a lot of vintage stuff in my house and I'm always a bit aware of it looking like a bit like a vintage showroom. Yes. So you need to mix it up a bit. Yeah. So the I can get a bit down the rabbit hole with the researching with anything, especially a big purchase. But like if I'm spending like say like over like 400 quid, I can be a bit like. But then there's some stuff like, I don't know, some stuff with like perfume, I'll buy like a drop of a hat and it can be like 300 quid if I just like the smell,
It's wild these days. Like the prices, it seems to have doubled.
It's really expensive now, yeah. And it's actually a really, like I would not recommend anyone getting into it because it's a really expensive hobby to have. I got so into perfume. I can get a little bit hyper focused on like obsessions as well. And like for about 2 years, my best friend and I, we both got really into like niche perfumes. And oh my God, like to the point where like, do you know the shop Perfumeria in Dublin? Like they know me by name now. I can go in and get any sample because they're just like, you've spent so much money here, which is actually so stupid. Like, and like this was when I was saving for a house. I was like going in just being like, I was so obsessed with smelling like a fireplace. I was just like kept looking for this one perfume. And now I have all these perfumes and I'm like, I will never get through them.
Whoa.
I know. But that stuff like that can be a bit of fun. Like I can get into like hobbies like that end up costing me money, but I justify it because I'm like, it's a hobby.
Yes, yeah. Would you like to have your own perfume?
Oh my God, that'd be amazing.
How that goes.
It does. Like, I know my friend is now, one of my friends is studying perfume in Paris, but it's like a 4-year bachelor's degree. It seems really hard as well. Like his exams every year are like, they just give him tubes of like core sense, and he has to identify them like immediately. Like and his background is science already, so it's a really intense course. So I don't think I'd ever get into making perfume, like as in the actual perfumery. But I mean, if I could have my own perfume and work with someone else, be fab. I know, I love.
On that note, what was your first job?
Oh my God. So my first job was, it was in a bead shop.
No way.
Yeah, you know where Grogan's is?
Yeah.
So it was in one of those shops on that little street between Drury Street and South William Street. And it was called Crown Jewels.
I remember.
Do you remember it? It was so cool.
These were hot.
They were. People used to like buy beads and make jewellery. My cousin worked there for years. And when I wanted my first job, it was like, I think it was, you could work there when you were 16, which I don't think you can anymore. But you could get like a part-time job at 16. And me and my friend, my best friend in school, Maria, we became really obsessed. We were like so obsessed with this one Louis Vuitton bag, which is really bizarre because like, I don't know how, I think I was just completely brainwashed. It's like those kids getting into like their skincare and stuff now. It's like as a 16-year-old, I was seeing like Paris Hilton and Britney Spears with the Murakami, the white Louis Vuitton. Yeah. The flowers and the multicolored LV. And we, for some reason, were like, we need to buy that bag, which is like, what? You're 16. So we both wanted a job, and we like found we planned on like working the whole summer and then spending every single cent on a Louis Vuitton bag. Like that did not happen. But I got a job in a bead shop and I got paid cash in hand. But it was actually kind of fab because we used to get to make jewellery and put it in the window. But it was really stressful when anyone, because like the odd time like a lot of jewellery makers would shop there, but they would buy like loads of beads and we had to count it by hand, and they had the old school till, so you'd have to know off by heart how much each bead was. And like I'm so bad at maths, so sometimes I was just like making up. I was like, I think it's around 80 cent a bead. Like, and sometimes you'd be like counting them so fast. But yeah, that was actually such a fun job. So I would like go there and I'd work from 11, I think, till 6. And then I'd meet my friend Maria at Starbucks on Dame Street, because that was like just opened. And we were like so into it. And we would buy, I think I spent all my money on frappuccinos. So yeah.
Great first gig.
It was deadly, because I had one day on this, like, I was trying to find a job and I worked one day in a spa. Never again. I was traumatized. Like, I just could not do that. They were asking me to do so much stuff. Like, I didn't know how to do the lotto. Like, they were like, someone was coming in asking for smokes. I was like, I just thought there was 2 brands of cigarettes. Like, I didn't know the buttons. Same. I was like, this is not my buzz. And then they were like, can you go on the deli for half an hour? And I just never came back. I was like, I am not doing that job. No way. So then I went into my world of like, and then I kind of worked retail for like most of my life, like all through college and everything. I was like, this is more my area than this. I was always so bad. I tried once to work in like a restaurant and I was so bad at it. Like, I just think you're either one or the other, and I really respect people who can do service, because oh my God, that is so hard. I think that is such a difficult job. Jeez.
Yes. But you had a kind of, for want of a better word, a conventional 9-to-5 job before you went out on your own.
I did, yeah. So I worked in marketing mostly. So I lived in New York after college, and in there I had to work with my visa what my degree was, and my degree was history of art, so you know, so many jobs. So I worked for an artist for a while, and then I worked at a magazine. And around that time, this is like 2014, 13, 14. Yeah, 13, 14. And social media was only kind of just becoming a thing, which is kind of funny to think it's only like 11 years ago for businesses, you know. So the magazine I was working at started a social media department, and I kind of started working there, and I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. Like, this could be something that I could do when I go home. So when I went home, I got a job in the beauty industry, but as a social media manager for Benefit Cosmetics. And I kind of launched off their social media, and then for a few years after that I worked like between agencies and in-house, kind of between PR, social media and marketing kind of stuff, and I did that for a while. So
got it. And then when did you just make that decision to go out? You must have tested the waters first.
So I had a podcast at the time, and we were making a bit of money. We had a sponsor, like kind of a year-long sponsor, but I didn't make the decision. I got made redundant. So the decision was very much made for me, and I think that kind of goes back on what we were talking about like making a big purchase. Like, I don't know if I ever would have gone out on my own, because especially now when I look back on it, like, it would have been really hard for me, I think, to match I was always like, I'll go out alone when I can match my income or get close enough. But like, you can't really do that when you're working on something like 1 day a week. You always need the time to invest in it, I think. So I had just got this job. It was for like a luxury eyewear company, and it was like it was definitely 100% the best paid job I'd ever had. Like, it was finally like, I felt like I'd finally like got a salary that I was like, okay, I can actually kind of maybe move out and do something with this, because before that I just felt like I was going up like tiny increments, and like the wage just was not like, I was like, how am I ever going to make enough money to move out, basically? And that was a really good wage, but the job was like not it at all. But anyway, I came back from holidays one day and there was like a meeting in my calendar, and I thought it was just going to be like, catch up after holidays, and they were like, your job's being made redundant. I was like, but they were, in fairness to them, like, they're very generous. They gave me like a redundancy pay, even though they didn't have to, because I was only there like a year, and it kind of covered me like for, I think it was about 2 months worth of my wages, and it was tax free. So I was like, okay. And the podcast I had at the time, we had just started doing like a live show, and we had just started a Patreon. So I was kind of like, okay, I'll do this for like 6 months or even a year and see if like the wage kind of reflects that, if I actually have the time now to do it. And again, I wasn't actually going to do it. I was like, I'm going to have to start a new job, and I was freaking out. And I said it to my dad, and he was like, well, why don't you just try and do the podcast? Like, you are making some money from that. So, you know, you've been basically starting a business on the side for the past year, so why not give that a shot, you know? And thankfully I did, but I don't know if I would have if I didn't have the encouragement again, you know? Like, I think it is that kind of conservative element of like spending for me. I can be a little bit afraid, or I always feel like I'm kind of running on empty even though I'm not. Do you know what I mean? Like, I always hear people say like, you know, you live in abundance, and I'm like, I wish I was like that. Like, I always feel it's all gonna crumble down at any minute sometimes. So yeah, I always try and like not be like that, because I don't think it's good to be like that, because it can kind of stop you enjoying like what you've made. But sometimes,
did you ever get there? Because the podcast went gangbusters, there's no other word for it, and you were one of the first out.
Yes, yeah.
So it must have been a point where you were like, this couldn't be going any better financially.
It did, yeah. Like, I mean, the first year I think exactly matched my wage, which I was really happy with. So I was like, okay, if I just kept doing this, I'm still making a pretty good wage, you know? And then like the next year, I think we like doubled that, and like we were doing really, really well. I think I always knew that like that would happen, though, just in terms of like how a business goes. Like, you can go really up and then you might go down, then you kind of find somewhere that's a bit more steady, you know? So yeah, exactly, you know? And also it was hard to kind of gauge, because our biggest year in business was COVID, because everyone was at home. A lot of people actually had weirdly more money to spend because they weren't going on holidays, and people were really wanting entertainment. So we had a Patreon, like a subscription at the service at that time, and that went, anyone who was on Patreon or any sort of subscription model did really, really well that year. So I also knew like, okay, we can't really base that as a base, you know, because I was like, whoa, that was like, we did really, really well that year, but we have to try and sustain that. And then we stopped the podcast anyway, so yeah.
But you're still on Patreon with The Bedroom, which is your newest podcast, and I mean, you are your own boss. You are the creator. You have complete ownership of it, which is, I imagine, super empowering.
Oh yeah.
But it's not for the faint-hearted.
Yeah.
To live off subscriptions.
Yes.
Based on the value of your content. So what's that like to
It's hard. When I started Red Room, I was only on a subscription model, just because I needed to, just in the way my last business ended, I just needed to start a business quickly because I had no money, basically. So I was kind of like, right, let's just start this and then kind of see where it goes. With the way, I think subscription models now, there's definitely, I think if you're already on Patreon, you can still do well. I think it's much harder now to just start a Patreon and make a living from it anymore. It's always been tougher in the Irish market. Like the likes of like American markets are much more willing, or at least see the value, I think, in paying for those subscriptions. Irish people are a little bit more wary of it, which is fair enough. We're not as likely, from what I can see. Like I can see like podcasts would be a similar size of mine in America, and they're doing like crazy numbers on Patreon, like wild numbers. I don't know if any Irish podcast is really doing anything close to that, even though their listenership could be really big and they could have a really loyal listenership. But I think the nature of my business is just kind of diversifying your income. Like I was happy having like that first year, like had my solid kind of income from Patreon, but after that I was like, okay, now I need to kind of like look elsewhere and like look to, because I think also with social media, like there's always the chance that like Patreon gets bought by some company and they ruin the platform. Or they, you know, even in the last year, Apple then brought in these charges that are like, they're making Patreon charge customers like this. And it's really frustrating.
Desktop, right?
Yes, yeah. So if you sign up via the Apple app, it gives you like, it's like €3 extra. And that's a lot of money. That's bringing like a subscription from €6 a month to €9. That's a big difference. Like €10 coming from your account versus like around $5. It's a chunk, you know? So I think when you're almost like a slave to those kind of big apps, you kind of have to go, okay, where else can I make my money? Like if that's a good solid, like whatever amount of money per month, but like, you know, if I can kind of diversify it out. And also the industry that I'm in is just the nature of it. It's constantly changing. So you really can't be like, this is me forever. It's impossible.
You seem to be really good at sniffing the wind and being out early and being out ahead of the. You do.
I hope so.
So I'm curious. What's cooking? Like, what do you think? Do you think there'll be any new kind of models get to?
I think what's really something that's big now is anyone who can take the following and the community that they built online and have some sort of tangible element to it. So I think the internet's not dead. Social media is never going to die. None of that kind of stuff. I don't believe in any of that. And I also don't believe in people who are like, there's enough podcasts. It's like, no one ever said that about authors. Like, there's enough people writing books. Don't write a book. You know, it's like, no, if you have something to say and it's valuable, people will read it or listen to it. But I think with social media now, people are looking for like something else, maybe like real life connection. I think COVID changed a lot of that. So where I see a lot of influencers doing really well now, or not even influencers, just people who create content or can kind of harness these communities, is having something like book clubs and like things where people can actually connect over something else that isn't like marketing products to them. If they're connecting on more so on like ideas or joint hobbies, or a way that they can meet people, I think those are, you know, they're still going to be digitally based in a way, because how the person will find the club, the run club, whatever it is usually through like an influencer or someone who is passionate about that. But I think like kind of expanding it into this kind of shared experience, that's where I see a lot of people will be going next. And it already is. I mean, like the likes of run clubs and stuff are huge, and they're huge for a reason. You know, people, they want to meet new people, but they don't want to, you know, do speed dating for friends. You know, they want it to be a little bit more organic. So I think that's where that's what I see as a huge trend that's coming up personally. And
yeah. You see it in a lot of it. You can see it in crypto as well, like with a lot of these kind of like meme coins. The offshoot is they're creating these communities that have these kind of in real life events.
Yeah,
for sure. But tell me, would you ever go back to a 9 to 5? Is it a really tasty offer?
Probably not.
Okay.
I always think of it now, and like me and one of my best friends, he's also in my industry, and we're always having these conversations where it's like, sometimes every month you're like, right, that's me done. Like, you know, because it might be a dry month. Sometimes you just don't have months where you make as much as the others. Sometimes you're like, oh my God, this is never going to end. The next month you're like, loads of people cancel their Patreon subscription this month. I also didn't get any social media ads. I've no sponsors on the podcast. And you could feel like, oh my God, it's me done. You know, so you always have that feeling of like, you open up LinkedIn, you're like, here I go. I'm thankful that I could go back. I think if I was to, you know, never say never. I always say that. But if I was to go work for a more traditional company again, I would want to be more so like brought in to do something very specific, like a role that was almost tailored for what I've been working on. Because I also don't know if I obviously work in social media, but like if I went into a typical marketing agency, like I don't know if I would know the, like say Facebook ads now. Like I haven't done that in years. Like I've been self-employed now for 7 years. Yeah. That's a long time. Like it's longer than I worked in the other stuff. So I think if I was to go and work for someone, I would probably be demanding like quite a bit of freedom as well, like a part-time role, but also something that was more tailored to like what I could bring, rather than like me trying to convince them that what I can do is good enough, you know. So something like that like could be good if it was in like production and stuff, if the job was good enough. And again, like in 10 years time I could be craving that, you know. It just depends. But I do think that like my goal is to stay self-employed for as long as I can. And it is mad. I only realised this year, it was 7 years this year, that I was like, wow, that's actually like nearly a decade. Like that's a chunk of time, you know, and it's been my longest career, which I'm very proud of, I have to say. I am.
Your husband is self-employed as well, right? So what's that like together? I mean, do you kind of do you psych each other up, or do you kind of can you feed into each other's anxieties about it?
Yeah, I think there is. I mean, he is in it longer than, so he's a photographer. He's been a self-employed photographer now for I think like 13 years, and he's always even says to me, he's like, I have that fear every year, like January, you know, you're waiting the first 2 weeks of January, you're like, oh no, like this is it, everyone's forgot about me, you know. I think he still has moments of that, but not as much, because it's been so pretty consistent for him, thankfully. But there's good and bad parts of it. I think we both really get each other's jobs, and we both really understand that like there is that nature of like, there might be some months where it's really quiet, or there might be some months where you're super busy, or with he and I, it's like we're both totally grand. Like some weekends he's working all weekend, you know what I mean? That's just, I know that's just the nature of it, you know. Whereas I could imagine that would be more like frustrating if I worked in an office, say Monday to Friday, and you're kind of like, oh yeah, we get to spend our weekend together, and then he's gone all weekend. Like I could understand how that could be frustrating, or vice versa. It's good for holidays, we can kind of go when we want, but also it's bad for holidays because neither of us are working, we don't get paid holidays. So, you know, there's different kind of elements to it. And then obviously when we bought a house, that was kind of a nightmare.
When did you buy a house?
We bought a house, we went sale agreed this time last year.
Well, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Two like
Sorry,
creative,
this time two years ago.
Because it's tough.
It was really hard. This time 2 years ago, we moved in this time last year around. It was really hard. Yeah. But you know what? Like once, I think if you have a good broker, it's not as scary as you think it was. He's much more like the spender.
Okay.
So he will push me. Like I'm so bad. Like I always say to him, like I probably would have been renting the rest of my life if I didn't have someone being like, no, let's do this. Yes. Let's actually try and get a house. Because I was kind of like, how will we do it? Like everyone says, if you're self-employed, you can't get a mortgage, and you know they won't look at us. And I was so psyched out about it. Where he was like, well, like let's just try. He had friends get it, you know. So he was like, why don't we try? And he was the one who kind of pushed us toward that, and we did get a mortgage. And to be honest, like thankfully for us, it wasn't that hard to get the mortgage. There was obviously we had to show more than like a salaried person would, but I think like, you know, we're both lucky enough that we made pretty consistent around the same amount of money for the 2 years that we did have to submit. Yeah. But there wasn't any massive, thankfully, like we were lucky, because I know some people have a nightmare with it, and you know, it can happen. Like I've always been, I think thankfully I never had like any credit cards or anything like that, so that's a big thing. I think my dad was always like, do not get a credit card. I think he knew, but I was too afraid ever to get like credit cards or loans or anything. But yeah, like getting the house was, I think honestly the anxiety of it was worse than the actual doing of it. It was the kind of, oh my God, we have to like really lock in our money and all that kind of stuff. And we were also getting married, and everything kind of came around the same time. But yeah, after the house, that was when it kind of got harder, because then we were like, okay, now we have to do a whole renovation. Where the hell are we getting the money for that? Like that was a little bit scarier.
And there is that point after putting the deposit down and you're in the house and everything's wonderful, but you being a saver, you probably were like, I now have no savings.
Oh, that was
very exposed or very vulnerable.
Well, like I told you earlier, like I'll go on a Reddit rabbit hole about buying a new pair of headphones, but suddenly I was in a house for 15 minutes spending €500,000, like all the money I've ever made in my life, plus the biggest. And then I'm signing all this life insurance stuff of like, if Evan dies, my mortgage. I'm like, oh my God, this is like a huge. It felt massive. And because we did the same year we got married, I was like, getting married's whatever. The fucking house is the scary part, you know? Because it's like, you know, you're agreeing to spend a certain amount of money for the rest of your life. So yeah, I think we also didn't get to move into our house immediately after, because we ended up having to do renovations on it pretty much immediately. So we kind of got married November 2023, got the keys October, married November, then moved into my parents' house in December after our wedding, and then didn't get into our house till April. So it kind of felt like ages until we could actually like be in the house. And then when we got in the house, I think we were both like, we both spent so much money. We were both so exhausted, like the renovations. I will never do that ever again in my life. Oh my God, hell. That we were both, I think we both had that kind of moment of like, not buyer's remorse, but just like, what the hell have we done? You know, it's kind of like, oh my God. Like, so this is the mortgage. These are the loan repayments. The house isn't even furnished.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It kind of felt like this like huge mountain that we still had to climb. Whereas I always heard of these people moving into their house and being like, oh, that first night in your house is incredible. I was just like, oh my God, what have I signed up for? But obviously, I think that's pretty normal as well. I've spoken to other friends who've had that feeling of like, it just feels like this like huge commitment. And you're like, oh, why did I do this? So yeah, I think especially for the way I am with money, I was like, oh my God, you know, and being self-employed, because you're like, oh my God, I just agreed to spend, like, this is my mortgage for the rest of my life. Like, oh my God, what if I don't make this money in a few years? But look, Evan's very good at being like, you'll always find it. And I'm like, will you?
That's great. So you're totally financially compatible, because they do say a spender saver.
Oh, really? Yeah.
The best mix.
Yeah, like he's probably better getting me to spend than I am getting him to save.
Yeah.
But he is good at like pushing me, because I think if we were both too hesitant, he would be much more like a little bit more impatient with me as well. Like, so our house, at first we were like, oh, we'll live in it for a while and figure it out. There was structurally, it was completely fine, but it was just very old and like it hadn't been touched and it was a little bit grimy. And then what happened was a friend of Evan's who was a builder, he just happened to have a job cancel like in the December, and it was so hard to get anyone to come and do anything in your house that we were kind of like, this could be a good opportunity just to get it done. Would I have made that decision? Probably not. Evan was probably better at being like, let's just do it, we'll figure it out. And I was kind of like, how do you just figure out all that money? Like, what? You know, but we did. So maybe I should listen to him. He'll be playing this back to me now for me saying that. But
builders do corner.
yeah, basically. Like, I was like, and I'd heard friends like that. They're like, you'll find the money. And I was like, from where? But you kind of just do. And, you know, Evan was kind of like, you know, we spend this once and then it's done, hopefully. It's not like you have to do this every year, a big renovation, you know? And I was like, okay, yeah. And then, you know, when he kind of broke it down to me, like the loans that we did get, like it was affordable. I can just get a bit more, I think because I'd never had like a massive loan as well. I was kind of like, oh my God, I wasn't used to like as another chunk of money coming out of my account, as well as rent and the bills and the this. But, you know, I can just catastrophize, whereas he's a little bit more chill about things. So it probably is a good thing. I think so.
I'm curious, as someone who like scrutinizes every big purchase, what were you like in the lead up to your wedding? Like how, like, you know, with things like the dress?
Yeah. So I think Evan and I are quite lucky that we know a lot of people in the industry from the nature of his job, makeup artists, all of that kind of stuff. So, you know, we were able to call in favours where we could. And I think we were lucky to do that. But I think everyone can call in a favour in some way, you know, whether it's like people coming and helping you do your flower arrangements or whatever else, you know. The wedding though, like I can be quite pragmatic with the decisions too. Like I really knew that like we're both real big foodies, and I was like, I just want to have like a fab dinner at my wedding. Like that's all I care about. Like I don't want crappy food, but like obviously with that meant like we couldn't have all of our guests at our dinner. So we had a really small dinner, which is what I wanted anyway. I wanted a small wedding. Yeah. So we only had 25 people. And then we had like a bigger party afterwards, and there was certain areas that I didn't really care about, like where we got married, because we got married in the Shelburne, and if we wanted like a DJ and a band and all that, we had to get this other room. And I was just like, why do people like, for me it's just not a big thing that I ever really wanted a wedding, is like the big band and the DJ. It just wasn't really something that I cared about. My friend always said, like when she was at my wedding, I was like, do you find it weird that I'm not doing this? And she was like, no, Jenny, she's like, back in the day we'd always find you in the smoking area talking rather than on the dance floor, so it's more of a reflection of you anyway. And I was like, actually that's so true. So, you know, there's areas that I think you can always kind of cut on with when it comes to weddings. But like, yeah, weddings are like so expensive, like it's so silly. Like a cake that would cost you 50 quid for a birthday is like 600 euro for a wedding, you know. It's like
you do wonder some vendors just taking it away.
Yeah, I mean it is crazy, but I kind of went for like ease as well, because I'm not really like a naturally like big into event planning. Like, I know some people love that. It gives me the heebie-jeebies. Like, I cannot stand it. Evan, actually, my husband, would be more into it because he's put on like Miss Universe a few times randomly. Yeah, I know, so random, or helped with it. So he would have a better idea, whereas like I was just like, I just want somewhere that has a wedding planner in it that can just like sort that out for me, because I like to choose the things, but the sourcing of it and all that, like, not really my interest. Like, I was particular about some things, like my dress, and I knew who was going to do my makeup and my hair and stuff, but other than that, I was like, oh, like, just show me 2 flowers in a book and I'll choose that one. You know what I mean? It's like sometimes I think it's like too many options. I knew I'd just be overwhelmed. Yeah, and we got that with the house. So God, if I had to do that for the wedding, I don't know what I would have done.
Yeah. What's your greatest extravagance in general outside of the wedding sphere?
I love a really nice hotel. That's something, like, as I've grown older, I actually just don't cheap out on anymore. Like, I'm not a like, well, we'll never be in the hotel for the day. Like, I like a fab hotel. I really do.
Yes.
Like, that's when I travel, or like, yeah, anything like that, I really do like. Now, there's obviously some, like, if I'm going to a concert, like, whatever, I don't care. But like, if I'm going on holidays, I like a really glam hotel. I really do. And Evan will, like, he kills me because he'll show me one and I'm like, there's no pool. And he's like, oh, come on. And I'm like, I don't care. Or like, I'm like, that pool's minging. He's just like, Jenny, your brain is rotted. But I do like that. With clothes, like, I'm not too extravagant on them. Like, I shop a lot of vintage. I love vintage. So even though it's not like, it's quite cheap to shop there, like, I don't have a lot of guilt about it, which is nice. And I love like the hunt for the clothes, like the vintage clothes. Like, that's more my thing than like, I'm not, although at 16 I wanted a Louis Vuitton bag, I'm actually not really like that now at all. So I'm more, I will go cheaper on things like that, because I don't know, expensive clothes just don't really, it's never been, and I've got some friends who have like fab wardrobes, but then I'm like, that dress was €700. Like, I'm like, I'm like, I'd prefer 2 nights in a 5-star hotel or like a gorgeous meal out. Like, I love a good restaurant. I'm more of an experienced person, I think, with money. Like, I actually don't mind splurging on like a holiday, a meal out, like something like that, or weekend away. Like, I brought Evan for his 40th to Rome, and like, you can fly business class to Rome, which is so fab. Ooh. Yeah, it's with Aer Lingus.
I'm going to be really crude here and ask how much.
I think it was, for the 2 of us, I think it was like €700. And do you know what? It was nice because I did it for a surprise for him, just because it was his 40th. So I was like, come on. If he saw me walk by those chairs and it was his 40th, he'd be like, for fuck's sake. He actually did not, because he knows me. He always calls me cheap. I'm not cheap, by the way, but he's more of a spender. So when we were getting on the plane, I didn't tell him that we were going on business class, and he like walked by the seats, and I was like, no, come back. And it was a 7 a.m. flight, so it actually meant you could like sleep on the plane, because you know when you get those early flights to a city, you think you have the whole day, and you just get there and you're like done. Like, we slept the whole way. It was great. Got there at like 11 a.m. in Rome, or 12 I think it was, with the time difference, and then we were hitting the road. It was brilliant. Yeah, so I love like stuff like that. I actually don't mind spending on it all.
Experiences.
Yeah, stuff like that. To me, that would be a splurge of mine. That and the perfume.
What's the most expensive place you've ever been? Like, whether it's a hotel or just a destination in and of itself?
Hotel wise, we stayed in one place in Mexico, and this was like, we went over for a friend's wedding. Evan was shooting it, and then we had another week kind of to ourselves, and we went to Holbox, and that was pricey-ish, but not super crazy. But on the way back, we had to stay another night in Cancun before we flew home, and I booked this hotel. It was so expensive, and I just thought it looked unreal. I found it on Goop, you know, like Gwyneth Paltrow's website. And like, it was actually, I say I like a nice hotel, but there's a certain line, I think, where it just gets a bit like, I can't enjoy it or something. And I find that with restaurants too. Like, I love a really nice restaurant, but I'm not really into fine dining. Like, I don't like it when they're like coming over and they're explaining the meal to me for like 20 minutes. I'm just like, just give me the dinner. Like, that experience kind of makes me feel a bit uncomfortable for some reason. So this hotel was kind of like that. Like, when you walked by any of the staff, they put their hand on their heart and they like bowed to you. I was like, and it was like, they wouldn't let you walk anywhere. It was like golf buggies everywhere. The rooms were like, it kind of felt like a compound. Like, it was kind of freaky. It freaked me out a bit. It was like too fancy. Do you know what I mean?
I find some of those places can pressurize you as well into pretending that you're rich.
Oh, me too. I was kind of
You
like,
know?
guys, this is a treat for me. Like, I'm not this rich.
No, you have to say it.
Yeah.
So I brought my mum to, like, I got some help from a sibling, but I went to La Mamounia, which is the really fancy place.
In Morocco, isn't it? Yeah, I saw that. It looks fab.
It is fab, but on the last day, it was like we were getting a taxi to the airport. I was booking it the night before. And they were like, would you like one of our cars? And I was like, yeah, great. And I was like, some white knuckles already on the
I know. You're like, oh my God, how much is this going to cost me?
And then he was like, blah, blah, blah. And then, so it was like, it was in the hundreds. And I was like, well, I said, and how's that different from the taxi?
Yeah, they're like, it's not.
And they said, well, it's blacked out.
Oh, yeah. It's like, oh no, sorry, I'm not a celebrity. Like,
at that point, I actually just lost. I said, look, we're just ordinary people.
literally, it's like, can I have a sticker or something that says like, I'm not a rich one? Like,
because it was just all got too much.
I know. And like, we went in when we were in Rome. I booked a lunch for us in this really nice restaurant that came on recommendation by a friend of ours who's like really into his food, and like it was fab, but like we kind of, you know, when you just feel like the poor people at the restaurant. It was full of like footballers and like wags and like rich Russian people. Like you could just tell they were like loaded, and like all these, like there was a table across from us, these two like Italian guys, and they had like their sons there, and like they were dressed in like suits. I was like, what the hell? And like the food, like I don't really mind spending a lot of money on like a really great meal like that. I love to do that, but this was just like, I just felt like, you know, when you're like, you feel like a kid again being like, what's the cheapest thing on the menu? I was just like, this is kind of pushed into the area of like, and it was also, you know, the last day, you think you're going to have a great time. The last day, you're just like, I just kind of want to go home. You're just like waiting for the flight home. So those kind of things, like, and it could only be like an extra 10% more, but there's just like a stuffiness about it. Or like, as you said, those hotels that make you, like, you feel pressured into making these really expensive, like, you know what I mean? They're like, would you like a masseuse? And you're like, okay, what? Why am I getting a massage? Like, I never do this, you know? So I always prefer like the fancy, but the kind of more, a bit more homely, chill vibes, you know. We're all on a treat. I'm not saying a month in this 5-star hotel. Okay, it's 3 days, but yeah. So that place was definitely, I'd say, it was definitely the most expensive hotel I stayed in, and it was beautiful, but it just wasn't. I don't know. There was a weird kind of air to it as well that made me, I just didn't feel, and I was like, what's the point in like being somewhere so fancy if I'm not like feeling really comfortable about it? You know? So like I would have, totally 100%.
And on that note, like, do you have any big financial regrets? I'd say maybe coughing up for that place is a bit of a regret, but
do you know what, it kind of isn't. Like I kind of find it funny, like obviously, to be honest, I don't think I'd ever put myself in a position where I'm spending like a crazy amount, like all my money on a hotel. Then yeah, I'd be regretting that. But you know, I was kind of like, okay, this is the top end of my budget. Like, we'll go wild with that hotel, you know. But it doesn't really make me regret it, because I'm kind of like, oh, that's what the rich people do. It's not even that good.
Yes.
Like, so now I don't have any craving to go anywhere like that anymore. I don't think I really have many massive regrets. Probably because I think so much when I do make big splurges, stuff I don't think of, like with my podcast, like I'm always buying equipment and laptops, and again, that stuff I just buy, like I'm like, ding, there we go, there's like $4,000 in a laptop, because I'm kind of like, I can always justify it. But when it's kind of like something a bit more frivolous, I tend to do so much research. But yeah, I don't really have too many huge regrets, really. I don't think, like, I hate it once actually, and it's such a small thing, but it actually, you know, when you just remember you bought something, you're like, oh my God. My friend of mine was like, oh, I found this amazing reseller of these vintage Levi's jeans on Etsy, and I was like, okay, give me the thing, because they looked amazing on her. You know, the old 90s, it's such a different like material. So I bought them, and they came, and I measured myself. I bought them in like a size 6. They literally didn't go over my knees, and they were so expensive. They're like €300, and I just threw them in, because they didn't take them back. They just threw them in the bottom of my wardrobe and was like, great. And I just like ignored that. So, but that's my own fault. That's my own fault for not taking my measurements correctly. So lesson learned.
Yeah. And on financial lessons, has anyone ever given you really good financial advice that you'd care to share?
I did. And it's so funny. It was such a like small blip in my life, but I always remember this. I said I worked in retail a lot. One of the jobs I had while I was in New York, as like my money job, was I worked just in retail in this store, and they had a couple of little stores. They were owned by this Korean American couple between Brooklyn, and they had some in the city as well. And they were really into their sales. Like, you were the only one in the store, and you got really good commission though, so there was like a really good incentive for you to like, and they were expensive enough, the clothes, but you know, they were really into like training us how to be really good salespeople, which was actually kind of like amazing. Like, I think he must have just worked in sales or something, because like this was not a guy whose background was like retail, but he was really, really great at like helping people like sell. And like, if you were bad, like he'd shadow you for a day in the shop, and I was seeing this guy who was like, in my mind then he was old, he was probably like only 38 or something. I was like 22, you know, but he was like, he would be able to sell like these like 28-year-old New Yorker women like dresses, and like he was just dressed normal, but he was such a good salesperson, like the way he interacted with them, and he was really great at that. And he'd always tell us, you know, if they're like in the dressing room, like just keep putting clothes in their dressing room for them. And like, I think as an Irish person, I was like, that is so cheeky, but it worked. Like, you would, like, I was selling like one transaction like $850 here. Like, you'd get someone come in for like a top and they'd end up spending like 900 quid. I think as well, you forget how much money, or I didn't realise how much money was really walking the streets in New York, even though 100%. In Ireland you just aren't getting that. Like, I never had that in like my job on Grafton Street, you know, like someone spending 300 quid was like, whoa, holy shit. So anyway, every one day a week, I can't remember what day it was, all the shops were closed or they opened late, and he had all the girls would come to their offices and we'd all talk about our week in sales. And like, he'd be like, oh, so Jenny, like you did this, like, and it'd be really open. He'd tell everyone, and like, if you were bad, he'd be like, why did you think it was bad? And I remember one day, I can't remember what happened, but it might have been like a really bad week or a really good week, whatever, but he would always kind of have these little spiels to us. And he was like, you know, one thing that like I always really try and do is I always try and leave a profit wherever I go. And he was like, one example of that would be if I was in a hotel, like I might like make the bed, or I might strip the bed for the cleaner, so that when she comes in, she doesn't have this like huge job to do. And then he also was talking about like saving, and this is what really stuck with me. You know, he was like, always remember that affording something doesn't mean that you have the money in your bank account. He was like, you can only really afford something if you can buy, say, the jeans for €50 and then save twice as much as well. He's like, that's affording something. Whoa. And I remember being like, oh, I never really thought of it that way. And it's always kind of helped me with making especially when I had like, you know, when I was in college or when I was kind of doing internships, I didn't have a lot of money, and I'd always be like, oh, I kind of want this. And I'd look and I'd be like, oh, like it's €50. I have €75. And he was always like, you always have to be able to like save twice the amount of the item as well as buying it. And that's actually being able to afford something. And he was, you know, and obviously I'm sure that kind of, it ebbs and flows. We're talking about something like a car or whatever else, but it kind of was like, it put into perspective like what affording something was for me. And I think it can help you not like chasing your tail with like buying something. And that's when I think you get regrets, where you like spend like the last of your money on something even though you had it, and then you're like, why did I do that, you know? So I always remember that, and I haven't always followed it, but I've always kind of thought of it.
I love it. I love the idea of like leaving profit. It's like that Japanese thing, like omotenashi.
Yes, yeah.
That's abundance mindset, I think, isn't it? Where you're just constantly bringing something and like seeing money as,
I get kind of that energy flow, but also I think like just respecting other people's time, it kind of comes with that, you know? Like he was always like, I would just never leave like a hotel like completely trashed, or like I wouldn't leave all my rubbish on the floor so that when the cleaner comes in, like they have to spend extra time and then they're behind on their day and then everyone's kind of behind. So, you know, even things with like restaurants, like I'll always try and like I've had like servers like literally like laugh at me because I'll be like stacking the plates properly for them, because I'm like, it's like, you know, we're all in this together. Like I'm not here for you to be like fawning over me, you know. So I think that probably like trickled down in my psyche as well. Like I think he weirdly, it's funny, it was like such a small job I had. It was not for a long time. It was probably like 5 months, maybe 4. But I don't know, he was bizarrely a good mentor, and he taught me how to like be quite a good salesperson as well. Like that was definitely, of all the retail jobs, and I've had so many, he actually was the only person who properly, like, I think taught me sales. So I was like, whoa, you know, because it was interesting. It was
I was talking to my partner with this because I actually am getting really, I might lose some people here, but I'm kind of getting into that whole abundance mindset.
Yeah.
And I was talking to my partner about it, and I was like, you know, if we were wealthy, what would we tip in restaurants?
Oh, yeah.
And we kind of came up with a figure, and I was like, well, that's not actually, do you know what I mean? For a lunch, by the way.
Yeah.
That's not that much. I said, why don't we just start doing that? I was like, because, you know, these things don't happen in a linear fashion. I said, like, it's just going to really make someone's day.
Yeah, totally.
It's kind of, you're kind of living in that space.
Yeah.
So we'll interrupt our goop.
Very goop of us.
Segment there. And get back to this. But tell me this, from a money point of view, do you have goals for the next 5 years? Say?
Yeah, I think because, as I said, we bought the house, we've done the renovation. So I think I've like 3 years left on my like loans for our renovation. So that would be really nice when I get to pay them off. I would like to be able to pay them off earlier. If I could. 5 years, like I would like to have probably started a pension of some sort, because I think we were going to start that, and then we were like, oh no, let's get the house. So couldn't really do both. And it also would make sense financially because it's like pre-tax and all that kind of stuff. But to have like a savings would be great, because at the moment I don't think I have any savings. That was a weird feeling, like all my savings going to the house. It was like, oh, all of it, okay. And then every cent I ever make after it. So yeah, I think that would be nice to have some sort of like solid savings, no big loans other than my mortgage. I don't love having loans. It's not my favorite thing in the world, because I just forget. I'm like, how do I have no money at the end? And then I'm like, oh yeah, well, that money came out as well, you know. So stuff like that would be good. But yeah, the savings, and my dad would love to hear me say a pension account.
Well, here is to a 2026 of
pensions.
Of sexy pensions.
I know, life gets so boring once you go over 30. It's like house, marriage, pension.
Yeah.